Okay, guys, I want to welcome everybody to another. I can't believe it's already Wednesday again. My gosh, the weeks just go by so fast. But I am so pleased to have tonight's guest with me. And I know most of you recognize Mrs. Ruth Hooks. Good evening, Mrs. Hooks. It's good to see you. And we've had a nice little chat before going live just now. How are you doing?
I'm really doing well, very well, happily well.
Well, it is so great to see you, and so many people have asked me over the several months now. You have to get Mrs. Hooks on, so here we are tonight, and I'm
Oh,
so glad.
that makes me feel good. Thank
Well,
you.
and as folks roll in tonight, I'll let you know who's here and the kind things they have to say, I'm sure. Uh,
Right.
so, for folks who have not been in touch with you in a while, or maybe lost touch with you, if you would tell us what's going on in your world these days.
Okay. Well, I I retired from Northview from public teaching, and I worked with the State Department for about 3 years, just traveling around and doing workshops for teachers on how to teach writing to their students. And um, my father got ill, and I needed to stay at here in Dothan and work with him some. And so I just kind of fooled around at home for a while, and then I worked for 2 years with a private school here in Dothan, but I was not really happy with that scenario. And so I spend most of my time working in the yard. I like to work in the yard with everything that's going on. And my husband 2 years ago had a brain tumor, a malignant brain tumor, and he had it removed. And we go to Birmingham about every 4 months to have checkups to make sure that the tumor has not recurred. But other than that, I've just enjoyed the free time that I've had, and just working in the house and reading lots of books and all of those kinds of things.
Well, for those of you who just tuned in, of course, I've got Mrs. Ruth Hooks, and this is not one of those virtual backgrounds. That's actually in her house. She has of course, a loft dedicated to reading. It is a library. I'm sure it is heaven for you and for those who get to spend some time in there.
Thank you. Yes, I spend a lot of time in here.
I'm sure I would as well. Ms. Hooks, what years did you teach at Northview?
uh,
You
yeah,
remember?
that's hard. Isn't that awful? I was trying to figure that out today, um, but I really don't remember. I remember my first principal at Northview was Dr. Smith,
Mhm.
and then Mr. Hardy, Phil Hardy was next, and
Right.
then the last, I can't remember the last principal, but I was there at least 30 years, I think.
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And speaking of awesome, some of these folks who are rolling in already want to share some love with you tonight.
Well, thank you.
Let's see, Elaine Woods Johnson says to tell you hello.
She's sweet. I love her. I remember her.
My mother Ruth says to tell you hello.
Oh, tell her I said hello too.
Oh, there's so many of them. I gotta run through them real quick. Coach Jerry Andrews, Jason Mullins, Patrick Fitch. Patrick
Oh,
says that your letter of recommendation made the difference in him getting into Vanderbilt, and he was later voted the first African-American student to be voted the student council, student government president.
well, I taught his brother Ahmed
Mhm.
too, and I just feel like they're my family. They were wonderful kids.
And the woman whose title you're going after tonight, Shirley C., sends her regards.
Yes.
Karen McGinnis McGorry says hello.
Remember Karen?
Janaski Fleming.
Oh, yes.
All right, guys, y'all got to stop because we got to talk here because there's just so many people who want to say, I'm going to come back to you guys in a few minutes. But Mrs. Hooks, I know you grew up in Troy. You went to Charles Henderson,
Yes.
then Troy State, now Troy University. What brought you to Dothan?
Well, I also went to Auburn. I got my degree from Auburn, and we came down here to Dothan. I taught in Montgomery High School in Montgomery for 4 years maybe. And my husband got a job teaching, not teaching, but for the federal government, because he's a graphic artist, and they're hard to come by jobs in that field. And so when he got that job, we moved down here, and it took a while to get a job teaching here in Dothan because it was so busy. There were so many different people ready to teach here in Dothan, but I finally got a job teaching at Girard Junior High School for a teacher who had been fired for hitting a student in class.
Oh, wow.
And that was at Girard. That year ended, and I went with the principal from Girard to Beverly Middle School, and I taught there for a couple of years, and then I got to Northview from there. Yeah.
Now, were you part of the first couple of years at Northview, or were you a couple of years after the school had already come into play or had been opened? I mean,
I think Northview had been open for about 2 or 3 years. I believe that's right.
I started in the fall of '82, and you had already been there a few years. I know that.
I should have mapped all this down, but I just didn't.
Okay. That's okay. We're having fun here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, John McGlone.
Oh, yes.
To tell you hello. Loved having you as his teacher.
He was a good guy.
Were you always in the English department at Northview?
Yes, always. Mm-hmm.
And was that your concentration at Troy and getting your education degree?
I got my master's degree from Troy, and then I got a AA degree from Troy as well, and all of it was in English. Yeah.
And within the study of English, obviously there's a huge umbrella there. How is it that you figured out that the specific topics that you ended up teaching, that's really what you wanted to teach? Or were you told this is what we need you to teach in any given time period?
Yeah, most principals don't ask you what you want to teach. They just put you where there's a need, But I think I was just blessed that when I got the first job was working with an 8th grade class. And then when I went with Mr. Not Mr. Jones, but Mr. Daniels, from Mr. Daniels over to Beverly, and that was 8th grade. So, it was just fortunate for me that I got some really good principals. Yeah. Well,
what was it like transitioning from the junior high or being either at Girard or Beverly and then going over to Northview? Because from a physical facility standpoint, it was a gigantic high school back then. It was almost like a junior high from a layout of the property. Did that pose any issues for you, or
no? It really didn't, because I enjoyed what I was teaching. When you're teaching in middle school, you're teaching more grammar than literature. And in high school, you're teaching more literature than grammar. And so I started out as a 9th grade teacher, and we did a little bit of half of grammar and a half literature. And I enjoyed doing that. But of course, my favorite grades were 12th grade. Teaching AP English was just the height of what I love to do.
Well, that clearly was evident, at least during the year that I had you in 12th grade. And for the many, many students who also took your classes. I don't know if you ever taught honors classes as well at the same time.
Yeah. There was usually only one AP class. And, like I would have 5 classes. So 4 of them would be honors classes and 1 of them would be AP. And the honors classes were just as wonderful as the AP classes. It's just that you went a little bit further with AP.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, one of your former students, Sissy Carol Reynolds, says to tell you hello.
Sweetheart.
I'm telling you, they're all coming out for you tonight, Mrs. Hooks.
Yeah.
I'll tell you from my experience not why, but how memorable my experience in your class was. I can still tell you where just about 2/3 of my friends in the class actually sat in the rows. That's how much I remember from being in the class. Now I can't recite anything. I can read it. I can't remember those kind of details, but just the remembrance of being in that room and in that situation, that environment is something that has stuck with me all those many years. And it was thanks to
Thank you for that. But I'll tell you, the reason that I had such a beautiful room was because I have a wonderful husband, and he decorated that room for English. And, you know, I don't know if you remember the big wall with the England and the big arm and everything in that room was put there by my sweet husband.
Oh, believe me, we noticed. It was by far the best decorated room.
Yeah, it had to be. Yeah. He was diligent and very creative.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your first couple of years at Northview. I've had so many former athletes, coaches, and others, as well as teachers who were there during that time period, and they talked about school spirit, not just from an athletics standpoint, but just an overall atmosphere within the halls of the school. What was it like for you those first few years?
I absolutely loved it. And I thought that Dr. Smith was just really great. He would lead pep rallies, and the last thing he would say, don't meet me there. Don't meet me there. Don't greet me there. Meet me there. Yeah. And it was just, he was great. He was responsible for a lot of the good feelings around the school, I think, really and truly. But teachers also binded together. And, you know, they wanted Northview to succeed. They wanted it not to just be another Dothan High School, but for Northview to really succeed. And everybody was tuned in, everybody.
Well, I'm sure that some of the early students and maybe some of the early faculty may have had a little bit of mixed emotions leaving a school, Dothan High, or maybe that's where their family went, or they had siblings or friends teaching there. But by and large, many people who were coming over to Northview in the later years were just excited about the newness of the school.
Yeah.
I guess the largeness and the fact that we had succeeded not only athletically, but also academically. Just for example, my year was 1986, my graduation year. Of course, we won the state football title, but we also, our band won state that year. And I think,
chill bumps.
Say again, please.
I said, I'm getting chill bumps from thinking about those years.
I think also through I don't know if it was acting or thespians, they also competed and won competitions as well. My point being is the school, while it may have been known for the football title that year, it was not just known for being a football school. I think that from an academic standpoint, they offered so many wonderful opportunities for students.
They did, in every category, just in every category. It was, everybody wanted to succeed. Everybody wanted the students to succeed. And it was a nice, I don't even like to drive by the school now because it's just, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to see that wolf up there.
It does ring a little different.
Yes, it does, yeah. I'm sure they're doing well though, you know.
I want to talk about your observations over your career about if you noticed a difference in the typical teenager or the typical student from the 80s into the 90s and all up until whenever you have most recently been around students. I know there's a lot of common themes that will hold true regardless of the decade, but it seems it was, and this is the old dude in me saying this, times were simpler in the 70s and 80s and maybe even to the 90s. But did you, from an academic standpoint, from getting to reaching the kids, have you ever noticed those kind of things?
The only response I can give with that would be to the private school where I taught. And they were still really interested in learning. And that was the thing for me with my students. They were really, they never ever balked at anything I asked them to do. You know, anything as simple as you can't write a theme with a pencil. It has to be with a pen. You know, they were willing and eager sort of to do everything that they were supposed to do. And I think that it can be that way even today, but it depends on the teacher and it depends on the leader of the school, exactly how important it will be to the kids. I mean, if it's important to you, if you love what you're teaching and you love the kids and you want them to succeed, it'll be the same no matter what. Or at least that's the way I felt. Yeah.
Interesting. I read an article a while back that says that the younger generations basically have the attention span of a goldfish, just 2 or 3 seconds. However, that same article also said that the brain of the typical teenager these days has been trained to really multitask at the same time, where in years past, we would never have, in my opinion, been able to succeed that way. Meaning the child now can look at the phone and still carry on that conversation across the table. As much as it may drive the parent crazy, it seems like the modern or the younger child generations now can do those things.
And everything is mobile too. I mean, and everything is quick. You can get things with the push of a button. Yeah. And you can get anything off the internet, any kind of information immediately, so that you don't really have to grasp it too much. Yeah.
You just have to be careful where you get that information.
That's true.
That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Well, back in the 80s and 90s and I'll call it the heyday at Northview. That's my term.
Yeah.
A couple of questions. Did you have favorite courses or books that you really enjoyed teaching each year, or did you rotate through them, or how did you determine? I know you had certain curriculum, I know that.
Yeah.
But how did you decide this is what I want to teach this semester?
For honors English, pretty much you had to teach the core things. You didn't have much flexibility in that at all, and that was not a bad thing. It was all British lit. Everything had to be British lit, and then learning how to write and grammar too. But with AP, I had the opportunity to do just about whatever I wanted to do because I was the only AP English teacher. I was fortunate enough to be invited to grade papers for the AP test. And I learned while I was grading those papers down in Florida that the kids had a wide breadth of things that they read. And the more successful people whose papers I read had read things I wouldn't have even thought of teaching at Northview. And so I started trying to get some of the things that I saw that would lead kids to be able to understand and interpret literature through those books that the AP Council thought were good. And so I was very fortunate that I could choose pretty much whatever I wanted to. And I only had one parent during all those years who complained about a book that they thought was not quite right to teach. And as I look back over it now, it probably wasn't. I probably shouldn't have taught that book, but it was for students who were very mature and could look beyond bad words or that kind of thing. Yeah, it was never bad, but it touched on a lip kind of thing with that. But I was very fortunate that I could choose pretty much whatever I wanted to. But I always took it from that list of things that the AP people were grading on and what they thought would be for mature student readers.
What a cool opportunity you had to be able to have that exposure by grading the
best. It really was. I would have gone down there and not be paid. It was that enjoyable. And it was wonderful to see what students over the whole United States could do. Mm-hmm. I mean, we never knew what papers we would get. I could have gotten some of my own students and not known it, but it was the most rewarding experience ever. It really was.
Very cool. Got it. Some more folks have rolled in. Stephen Collins says to tell you hello. Coach Randy Hicks.
Oh.
And Rick Cazenave all send their regards.
Them, yes. Yeah. Super.
Ms. Hooks, what gave you the most, I guess, satisfaction? What gave you the most pleasure about your job at Northview? What was it about teaching either honors or AP English that gave you the most joy?
The students' desire to achieve things. They never let me down. No matter what I asked them to do and how stupid it sounded, I think we had 10 vocabulary words every week. Maybe it was 15. I can't remember, 10 or 15 vocabulary words every week, and we would add to it on the test. And I was always just amazed that they really learn those words. And I hope they use them today and remember them today. But also anything that I asked them to do, they were willing to give it a try. I mean, they weren't always happy about it, but I honestly don't ever remember anybody saying, I'm not going to do this, or why are you making me do this? I could tell that some people would not necessarily like it, but they never called my hand on it. And I respected them so much for that. You know, but that was the thing that was remarkable to me, that these students really cared about their learning, and they really want, you know, they complain about the vocabulary words. I mean, so do we have to have them all? And I'd say, if you learn them first time, you don't have to learn them again, you know, that kind of thing.
I hear you saying that too.
Yeah. So that was fun. That was fun.
Well, during your time at Northview, was there a department head or a department chair, or how was each department organized?
We had department chairs. Yeah, we had department people that headed the department. It was really a job that was not very hard. It didn't require people to stay after school and do long things. It was just a kind of an honorary thing, I think. But the head of the departments would meet with their teachers after school once a month or something like that, but that was about it. It was a meaningful job, but not one that was difficult.
Was that a role that you filled for a while as well?
Yeah, for a while. Sure. But the good thing about that was that the principal decided that it wasn't a very good thing for one person to constantly be the head of the department, and so he asked that we vacillate, that we change every so often, and I thought that was a good idea.
Well, let's talk about faculty for just a minute. Who were some of your buddies back in the day? Who were friends of yours during your time?
I'm going to have to tell you, I'm getting so old that I cannot remember names very well anymore.
Okay. But that's okay.
Ms. Hemby was one, of course.
Oh,
yeah.
Sure.
My daughter's reminded me of teachers that she had. Ms. Hemby was one. Who?
Tallulah Snell. The Snell. Tallulah Snell.
Oh, Tallulah Snell too. Yeah, there were. It's been a while, and I kept having trouble with
names to you during my time. Was Lamar Helms was there?
Yes, Lamar Helms was a good friend of mine. Yes, still is, and Sonia Jernigan was a good friend of mine. Still is. I haven't seen Alice Sowell in a long time, but she was wonderful. Mrs.
Norma Jean Spivey was there.
Spivey, yeah. I went to her funeral. I remember that. So it's just been I think there wasn't a single person I didn't like. They were all just, and that's not to say that I wouldn't argue with somebody, or that I wouldn't. Miss Foster, for example, and I could get into an argument sometime about singing or whatever with her choir. People should keep them late or something, you know, but everybody was congenial with each other mostly, yeah.
Well, let me kind of pivot topics a little bit with you for a minute. I want to talk about the clash, if you will, that's my term, between academics and athletics. And when I came through my years, I was 82 to 86. I graduated in 86. And forgive me for saying this, but this was what was known at the time, is you were pretty tough about what you needed done and when you needed it done. And it didn't matter if you were in the band or athletics or whatever it was, deadlines are deadlines.
Yeah.
And I can remember many, many late nights, but that's what comes with playing sports. And this is certainly by no means a criticism. I'm just asking a question. What was your philosophy about extracurricular activities such as band or theater or sports, also combining with your academic requirements and responsibilities?
Yeah, well, I think sports is very important. I really do, and I think all of the things that were offered to these kids, all the clubs and things, the socialization is very important. But when it comes down to it, unless you have some superior talent or some superior athletic abilities, you probably are not going to get a job doing that. And what you can do is learn in school. And honestly, both my girls, Danielle played softball and Tar played softball to some degree,
Tennis.
but I could understand how it could be hard for you, but if you're in an honors class, you have to keep the grades up. You have to keep it's incumbent upon you to do your very best. And the more you have to do, the more it prepares you for the rough times in life and how to multitask, because you have to. This world demands it.
And Harry Wayne Parrish was the head coach during my
Oh,
years.
yes, he was great. Yeah.
And Coach Parrish and all the other assistant coaches under Coach Parrish, they took academics very seriously.
Yeah.
If you didn't make the right grades or the proper grades, you weren't going to be playing, and you had to go deal with your academics.
Coach
Then-
Hicks that way too. Yeah. Because he
That's
taught a class. Yeah.
That's exactly right. But I can remember a couple of times, whether it was tennis players or football, baseball, whatever the sport was, you would hear, well, Ms. Hicks, we've got a game this afternoon. I can't. It didn't matter what it was. You just had to get it done. And I think that's a responsibility of any student athlete, that if you're going to do both, you have to do both. You can't give one to the other.
You can't. And it prepares you for real life.
Mm-hmm.
It prepares you, because you will have times when you just wonder, how can I fit this all in? And the sooner you learn to do that, the more you're going to be able to do it as you get older.
That is so true. And I think high school does, in the right environments, does such a great job of that. I know there are some high school environments where the academic stress, just given the nature of the specific school, is so dense. I don't know if that's the right term, but it becomes very stressful to the student. There are other students who thrive in that environment, and maybe that's the right place for them. But it's the ones who can do the extracurriculars, where it's theater or band or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and keep their academics up. You're right. They learn how to keep those responsibilities.
And it's okay to fall sometimes. So, sometimes you just can't do it, and you just have to say, Ms. Hooks, I'll have to take that a 0.
Mhm.
And that's okay too. Grades don't really mean that much. It's what you put into what you're getting out. And sometimes you have to make choices. And I understood that, but my job was to teach. and that was it. Yeah.
Ms. Hooks, we've got, let's see, Pamela Cummings Fitch says to tell you hello. Tara Wade Estes says she loves your husband's paintings of Canterbury Tales that were
Yes.
on the wall.
Yeah. They were all over the wall. Yeah.
Well, let's pivot to sports for a few minutes. Let's talk about those pep rallies. Let's talk about the football games, the basketball games. What parts of those did you find enjoyment and get a kick out of?
Every one of them. I loved going to the football games. Everybody went to the football games. Went to a lot of the basketball games, not all of them, but some of the girls' basketball games too. I like to watch those. And the pet rallies were fabulous. I remember Mr. Dyke getting into a fight on the boxing ring with someone. I can't remember who the woman was, but he was in there fighting against. I mean, it was one team against another, against our team, And there was a gag every time. There was a little skit every single pet rally, and it was fun.
And as you mentioned earlier, by the time Dr. Smith got around to his concluding poem, you couldn't hear him because all of the students in the gym were up and yelling it back with him in unison.
Yeah, they knew it. Yeah.
And that
was fun. It gives me chill bumps to think about it. Yeah.
Remember, he used to jump up and click his heels, and it would just be such
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah. I don't think it every time, but I remember seeing him do that.
Oh, wow. That's
Ms. Hooks, Ahmed Fitch says to tell you hello. I didn't realize it was somebody else on there, but he says to tell you hello. Pat told me.
He's a favorite. He's a favorite.
Good dude, great family. Did you have any, when you went to the football games, did you have certain people you'd always sit with, other teachers, friends, family, or just wherever you sat, you sat?
We just sat. It was always packed. if you got there early, you might have a choice of where you sat. But if you got there, if you got there on time or a little bit late, you just might as well sit where you could. Yeah.
Exactly
I
right.
always got there just a little bit late.
One of the beautiful things about where the stadium is located was the proximity of the bread plant.
Yeah.
Right across the parking lot.
Sure was. Yeah.
I know that many people at halftime would go over there and get bread and come back into the stand.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that too. Yeah.
Certainly could smell it on the field too.
Oh, I bet. I bet. Yes.
Ms. Hooks, we're getting close to the end of our conversation, and I really appreciate you taking us through some of your memories and some of your.
Thank you for letting me.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Let's see. I think I'm seeing if any other folks have rolled through here. And if you have, guys, please, sometimes they roll through so quickly I can't see them. They don't
Sure.
say hello. Ms. Hooks, what is it about the profession of being a teacher is such a noble one? It is so, to me, it is underappreciated on many levels. And it's too easy to overlook what teachers do, whether it's in an academic setting in a school where it's a more formal setting, or you're just a teacher on the job. You could be having an apprentice type situation where you're mentoring someone. What is it about teaching another that's so important?
I think that if you love what you're teaching, is something you want to share with someone else. If you really get a great deal of enjoyment, like for me, I enjoy reading and I enjoy memorizing things. If you enjoy that, then you get great rewards when you see somebody else enjoying it too, and being able to do it. I know you said something about my kids, my former students are probably all talking about those Canterbury Tales and how foolish, it seems like that's a really foolish thing to do because it's not today's English, but when they could do that, and almost every single one they'd say to begin with, I can't do that. Almost every single student could memorize that from top to bottom. And it was just a feeling of achievement through that, just feeling of, I can do this. And for looking at that, how the language has changed over the years, lets them see that learning is really important. Learning about our previous lives and people in the past is important, how we look to the future. And so it's just a great reward to a person to see all that happening, I think. I miss it a lot.
I've often heard that the greatest gift a person can give to another is their time.
Yeah.
And I think that teachers give so much of their time to their students, again, whether it's an academic setting or otherwise. And maybe from a personal standpoint, from a teacher's standpoint, it must bring you great joy to see accomplishment in others.
It really does. When I see kids from previous years, I went to a Bible study yesterday, and one of the new guys that came in was one of my former students, and he was telling me some things that he'd learned, and I thought, wow, there's no greater profession. There's really no greater profession. If you can give something to someone else about the past or the future, or learning and being able to deal with things, because learning does help you to deal with everyday life as well.
But not everybody has the patience or the mental makeup to have the patience to teach. And clearly you had that gift. So on behalf of everybody,
I'm not sure about that. I'm thinking my children and my husband might disagree with that.
they don't count. Family doesn't count.
Yeah.
I'm speaking on behalf of the thousands of students you taught over the years,
Yeah.
and the many who have rolled through here tonight, including, let's see, Charles Kelly Bronson says to tell you hello.
Charles.
And Miss C said she believes that Mr. Smith, Dr. Smith's degree was also in English. Didn't know if you knew
I
that.
don't know. I wouldn't be surprised because he knew everything that I taught. He was very intelligent. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, again, on behalf of everybody who's rolled through here tonight and all of you students over the years, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me see you again and to just remember good times.
They
Thank
were good times and they are good times. But before we get out of here, I do have to note the passing of Coach Kirkland that we all learned this week.
Yes.
He was a great coach and even better man, and
Better man. Yeah.
sadly be missed. But thank you.
He was wonderful. Never saw him anything with a smile on his face. Anything but that. He's just a smiling person.
You know, for such a tall man,
He was tall. Yeah.
he could have been a very imposing figure, and at times he was when he was coaching. But he had such a gentle nature about himself that endeared.
He did. He really did. Good man.
Well, Ms. Hooks, thank you. This has been one of my favorite conversations. I really
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you
absolutely.
for letting me see you and remember old times.
Oh,
Appreciate
absolutely. And surely see if you're watching, Ms. Hooks is gunning for you on the most watched coming up.
it. Oh, that's
Well,
funny.
guys, this will conclude for this week another episode of Conversations with Cougars. And I continue to enjoy this each week. We've got many more folks, all different generations coming up. So please keep coming back on Wednesday nights and we'll keep doing this. You guys stay safe and we'll catch you next Wednesday.
Thank you. Bye.